Hola, hello, we are live today. Once again, we are doing faith, entrepreneurship, and leadership and its intersection. Karibuni sana. If you were with us last week, then you know it was an amazing session. Hello, somebody. We are looking forward to being here. Come on, we're waiting for a few more people. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Excellent. All right. We are going live in a short bit. Oh, okay. This is the intersection. This is the intersection of faith, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Come on. We are going live in a short bit. We are live actually. We will start the conversation in a short bit. All right. Karibuni sana. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Okay. Hanisha. It's good to be. If I do that, it goes down. Excellent. Welcome. This is a conversation about where we grow our faith and why we go. Come on in. Hallelujah. Sometimes it feels like church in this space, and that's just because that's my persuasion. Come on in. Hi, Naima. Welcome. This is the intersection of faith and life. I hope you've had a good day. I hope your Friday is going well. We do this every Friday. Come on in for a great conversation around faith and leadership. If you haven't been here before, I think you'll really enjoy it. We have a lot of fun in this space. Tough conversations that give us clarity, that give us strength. So welcome to this space. I hope you have a good day. Welcome, Benji. Nice to have you on the call. Karibu sana. Hallelujah. Karibu sana. All right. So, today's conversation will recap what we did last week, and then we will proceed from there. We'll recap what we did last week, and then we will proceed from there. So give me a minute. All right. We shall kick off in a couple of minutes. Feel free to share. Okay. All right. We are going live in a minute or two. Feel free to share. We are going up soon. All right, so welcome to the intersection of faith, leadership, and entrepreneurship. This is a space where we clarify who we are, why we are here. Karibuni sana, Favor Ruth. It is a joy to see you. It is a joy. Okay, so I think we can, in the next minute, start, or less actually. And we'll be taking questions. There's some questions that came up from last week's live, and that will give the direction of where we're going. So last week we kicked off the whole conversation about entrepreneurship. We talked about the entrepreneurial mind, and I'll recap that shortly. And then we talked about the characteristics of it, and then we took some questions at the end. So let's kick off with a recap of last week. And I think the biggest beauty about this space is how we can have absolutely honest conversations about who we are, where we're going, and why we do exist. So let's kick it off. My name is Chasubira Talitwala. I'm based in Nairobi. I'm a mentor, a coach, a trainer, and co-founder of the African MSME Collective. And what we do in the collective is we help business leaders and business owners lead and live with clarity and intentionality. Many times the reason our businesses are not doing as well as they should is because we don't have a clear picture of what we want, where we're going. So in the AMC space, the African MSME Collective, what we do is we help you find that clarity. We do it across the board. We have consistent programs. Every Tuesday we've got a free session. Every Friday now I'm here on TikTok, and what we do is give you the skills. Many of us have the head knowledge. We know what we want to do. We know where we want to go, but that actual skill, Achiwa Limited, Karibu Sana, that actual skill of moving from A to B, what steps to take, how to stay the course when things are not working. That's what we'll be talking about through the weeks, and that's what we do at the African MSME Collective. So Karibuni Sana, it is such a joy to have you on the call. So let's start with a recap. Last week we talked about the entrepreneurial mindset, and we said that it is a way of thinking that helps you approach life and see possibilities where everybody else sees challenge. So it's a way of mind. It's a mindset. It's what do I call it? It's like, when you're building with concrete, and in the concrete you put rebar or you put those reinforcing bars. That's what the entrepreneurial mindset is all about. It's about that thing that helps you get ahead, that helps you get past where you are and into a place of strength and stability. It is a mindset. It does not mean that it does not mean that you have to start a business if you've got an entrepreneurial mindset. It just means that you're able to see opportunity in challenges and then flip those challenges to become things you can do. You can generate income from them. You can solve a solution. So you can solve a problem for your community. So the entrepreneurial mindset makes you a solution provider. You start with problem solving, and then you become a solution provider. All right. So that's where we started last week. I'm just checking my notes. So let's go back there. All right. So we said the entrepreneurial mindset is the capacity to see opportunity in very challenging situations. That's what the entrepreneurial mindset is. Now, it helps you to move ideas into action. It helps you to problem solve. It helps you especially when the path is not clear. So most of us come to a junction, or you find a block in the road, or you just find a very difficult situation, and most of us are just like this. So I can't do. And then what we need to be able to do is move past it. So the entrepreneurial mindset, what it does is that it comes into a space and it helps us see more than there actually is. So that is what we discussed last time, right? Okay. Now, the other thing we looked at is the characteristics of the entrepreneurial mindset, which I will just go through very quickly. It means it's opportunity-based, which means it sees possibilities where everyone else sees problems. It's action-oriented, so it takes steps even when the outcome isn't guaranteed, and that's a big one. And it's adaptable. It pivots. It finds solutions. You're going down the road like this, there's a block, it finds an option. So it pivots. It finds alternative ways to do things. It changes plans, it finds a new lens to see life through, and it learns from failure. All right. An entrepreneurial mindset is also resourceful, which means it uses what's available. So let's say you get to a place and all you can find is, let's think about it. You're on a road, you find a big block. A resourceful person could either go around the block or climb over the rock, you see? So you're able to see what are the 3 or 4 ways you can get past here and how do we get to the other side. It's also very impact driven, which means it cares about creating solutions that change lives. And finally, it's vision led. It thinks beyond survival and it moves on to the place of purpose, growth, and legacy. So that's the entrepreneurial mindset. One of the biggest things I find interesting about it is that it is something that is developed. And that came off a question that somebody asked last week. Are you born with it or do you develop it? And some of us are born curious, and that's a good thing. But the entrepreneurial mindset is developed. It's like a muscle. It is like a muscle that you must build. So think about it this way. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And then you develop it through experience. You learn from your failure. You consistently learn to take action and things like that. So you build it by facing problems. You build it by solving people's challenges. And you build it by refusing to give up. That's the entrepreneurial mindset. And if you're a person of faith, it gives you a stronger edge because you're not building alone. You're being shaped by God as you move. You are strengthened by Him as you keep going. You are capacitated and enabled to stay the course. And that, for me, is the most powerful thing about the entrepreneurial mindset. So this means you can grow boldly. It also means that you can start even if you're feeling fear. It also means that you gain vision even if you don't come from a business background because you're problem solving. So you can take the entrepreneurial mindset, which is the capacity to solve problems. You can take that mindset and shift it and move it and make it become a tool you use on a daily basis. So it's really a tool, all right? And it helps you build. So I think when you look at building a house, it's so interesting. First of all, you have to go underground. You dig, you get to the rock. Then you build up from the rock, and then you must build a little bit above the ground. Then you do the backfilling, then you do the slab, then the walls, the lintel or the ring beam. If you're going up, you solidify from there. Then you go up. If you're not, you do the ring beam, and then you do the trussing. And building is not easy. But think about your entrepreneurial mindset as a way to build. So when you begin to build with entrepreneurial mindset, what you're able to see is, so I can keep going. I can keep making it. And then you're able to keep going. So that's really the joy about the entrepreneurial mindset, because it helps you remain solid and steady. And that's what you're working to look at. So I hope we're together on that, and then we can proceed. So today we're looking at how where we are born is important for where we are. All right. All right. Now, we said entrepreneurial mindset is something that is actually grown and developed, and it's a muscle that you use. That's what we've said earlier. We've said it's the way you see opportunities. You're able to come in and you're able to build from that place. Number one. Number two, the other thing about where you're born is the fact that it feeds into the kind of mindset you have. Remember, we said the entrepreneurial mindset is built, it's honed. It is something that you grow over time. Okay. So now, why is where you are born important? Remember, it's not your whole story, because where you're born is just where you start. All right. You have the place where you get to the place where you are able to figure out, this is where I came from, and this is where I want to go, and this is how I want to get there. But you don't get stuck. All right. You don't get stuck there. What you do is you keep moving. So where you're born is important, but it is not the whole story. Where you are born is important, but it is not the whole story. What it is your starting line. Where you are born is your starting line. And that is a beautiful thing, that you can come on board from different places and actually make it work. So let's start. Why is where you're born important? Because it shapes your perspectives. Where you're born is important because it determines your early opportunities. It's also important because it affects what you see, how you think. It gives you a set of thought patterns. Where you are born is critical because that is ground zero. Where you are born is ground zero. It is your starting line. So think about it like this. You want to build a house, but depending on where the piece of land is, what the land is like, it will determine what you build. If your land is on a hill and there's a lot of rock in the hill, you may not need to go very deep. But if your land is on the flat ground and the soil is really thick, you need to go deep. And I'll give an example. When we were growing up, my parents bought a piece of land, and from ground level to the rock was 8 feet. Now, because my father was an engineer, he knows you must get to the rock, and that was before the advent of pylon technology. Pylon technology is where you dig a hole and you put a really thick pillar, also called a pylon, down to the rock, and then you now build the slab and build from there. In those days, the standard operating procedure was you dig out all the soil and then you start building from the rock. So they had to go 8 feet deep, and the 8 feet deep was 43 tracks of hardcore. 43 tracks of hardcore, 8 feet. Now, later on, when we were building our house, the place we bought land, the rock was 3 feet deep. I don't even think we did 4 tracks of hardcore. So it got me thinking. When we grew up, the house had 8 feet deep of a foundation. This other side, we had 3 feet. Now, as I grew up later and I began to see how the people in the West build, I was like, that could have been a complete basement, a complete floor of the house. But at the point at which the house was being built, we did not have that technology. So if that house was now being built, if I was building a house in the same area, I would build it differently. I would go in, backfill, waterproof, many layers of waterproofing, and then have a basement. All right. So it's very important to know that where you were born is your foundation, and it is important, but it is not your full story. Where you were born is your foundation and it is important, but there are places you can get to that are outside that place where you were born, and that is your reality. But understand, where you were born shapes your reality, it shapes your perspective, it shapes your grounding thoughts, it also influences your access. Now let's talk about access. Access is the things you can get. Access is the things that you come by. So it affects, because of how you think, it affects your access to resources. It affects your access to network. It even affects your confidence. All right? And all this comes from where you were born. Now, it isn't that you cannot change that, but what I want us to do is acknowledge, pali tumetoka. Let's acknowledge where we come from. So, once I know I was born into this kind of family, then it will help me shape a lot of things about myself. Many people say, oh, I have never done this before. Yeah, even we all have things we've never done before. So here's the truth. You might be born in a small town, but you have You might be born in a small town, but you have a global solution. And let's be honest about ourselves. Sometimes we think that because we're born in small towns, we are not valuable. I will say that again. You might be born in a small town and carry a global solution inside you. You might be born into a simple family, but the solution that was put into you at the point of design is so huge that no one can understand the length, the depth, the breadth, the height of who you will become. So what does that mean? That means where you start is not necessarily where you must end. I'll say that again. Where you start isn't where you must end. You can start in a small village, in a humble place, backside of the desert, the unknown place where there's no rain, there's no water, there's no nothing. But because of who you are and what you carry in you, when you apply yourself to the world, what you can deliver will be unbelievable. And that's the thing we must understand. You may be born in a small town, but you could carry a global solution. So then it is to move past that thinking that, oh, I just come from a humble background. Oh, I don't know those things. Many people have come from very humble beginnings and have become outstanding and amazing people. Many people have come from very affluent backgrounds and ended up as nothing. The only thing that covers them is the fact that their parents are affluent. So the thing I want us to understand is the entrepreneurial mindset allows me as Chesubire to own where I was born, understand the limitations of that, but also look at who am I, what do I have, and do I have a solution that can get me out of where I am? There is a lady I follow on TikTok. She's called Melody Rutendo, Pastor Melody Rutendo. And just yesterday, she was reminding us how she comes from a very difficult background. She was born in one of the poorest of the poor communities, right? She's from Zim. And on one side of where she was born, there's a sewer treatment plant. And at the back side of where they were born was a lepers camp. And on the other side of where they were born was a forest. So there was only one way in and one way out. Today, she is a pastor in South Africa. She has gone to university. She has been able to study. She now has a following online of over 100K. I think we're about 300,000 of us who follow. And every weekday morning, 2,000 of us enter the prayer room with her. And every end month, at the end of every month, we do crossover service, and another 1,400 are with her in that crossover service. Now, what does that mean? It simply means where you were born does not determine where you will end up. Okay? Where you were born does not determine where you will end up. So what you must do then is pursue the journey of where you are destined to go. All right? You must pursue it. So the entrepreneurial mind allows you to get to a point where you acknowledge, this is where I was born, but this is not my end game. The entrepreneurial mind allows you to see, in the community where I sit or in the community where I was born, these are our challenges, all right? And then begin to pursue a different place. So, just because you were born in a place that was small, just because you were born in a place that has limitations, just because you were born in a place that has limited access to things, does not mean that is the end game for you. Just because you were born in a place where people have never done much doesn't mean that you will never do much with your life. Where you come from is just the starting line. It is not the end game. Where you are born is not the determinant of the sum total of what you can be. What you can turn it into is you can turn it into a place where you become something absolutely different. You can see every struggle, every trouble you are born in, and use it as fertilizer, use it as fuel, use it as a way that you can grow, become, and succeed abundantly. So the entrepreneurial mindset is what helps you see opportunities in challenges, opportunities in difficulties. It pushes you beyond the normal thoughts that everybody has. So what are normal thoughts? It's a cold day. I don't feel like going out. Your boss asks you to do something. Hiyo ni kazi mingi. That's a lot of work. Or you start a business. This month you sell. Somebody next to you opens the same business. I can't do this. You shut. You start a business. You make a loss. You say, business is just bad. Because the entrepreneurial mindset is problem solving, your mindset becomes, what can I do? Why did this person come and set up here? Do we actually share the same target audience? Are we selling the same quantities? Are we selling to the same people? And if you are, then you ask yourself, how can I do different? Because the entrepreneurial mindset is a problem-solving mindset. And after you solve problems, because that's reactive, you begin to focus and look ahead and see what solutions can we provide long-term. That is why where you are born isn't a limitation when you have an entrepreneurial mindset. There is a young man I mentored a few years ago, and I've loved watching him, because he's tried many different things. And a few weeks ago, he said to me, Mom, I have finally realized that if we apply the things you have taught us and we work with patience, then we are able to accomplish. In a world that pushes microwave, and some things you can actually go from 0 to 1 million very quickly, but others you can't. So in a world where 0 to 1 million is the only narrative being pitched, when we get into spaces that are moving slowly, it's very frustrating. If we have the entrepreneurial mindset, then we're able to look at it and say, what is working? What's not working? How is it working? How isn't it working? Where are we going? What do we need to do? Who do we need to talk to? Because the entrepreneurial mindset is focused on solutions and transformation. Two things. Because impact is what drives the heart of the entrepreneurial mindset, and impact is simply transformation. I met you when you were making 2 bob. Now you make 200 shillings. And then when you've moved from 200 shillings, we're now at 2,000. We've moved from 2,000 to 20K, 20K to 200K, and it's consistent. Because the entrepreneurial mindset is seeking impact, it measures. It seeks tangible things that we can measure. So you come into my place, into my space, and you are always angry. And I'm a counseling psychologist. We're looking to understand why that is like that. We're looking to understand how to get you to where you need to go. And then we put in the building blocks. So to have an entrepreneurial mind is to realize that where you were born and where you come from is not the sum total of what you will achieve. I'll say that again. Where you were born and where you come from is not the sum total of what you will achieve. So if you have a question about the entrepreneurial mindset, let me see it in the comment section. We'll pick it up and we will answer it, because what we're working to do is ensure that we shift from an ordinary mindset to an entrepreneurial mindset, which means we're shifting from just accepting how life is to problem solving, solution providing, to challenging the status quo, to asking questions. Because many of us are in spaces where we can have impact, but because we don't sit with it and we don't ask enough questions, then we are unable to move on. So we've defined the entrepreneurial mindset about the capacity to see opportunities in challenges, the capacity to push through no matter what, the capacity to iterate and innovate. So the characteristics of the entrepreneurial mindset are that you are resourceful, you are able to pivot, you are impact driven, you are vision led, you are action oriented, and you're opportunity focused. I'll run through those again. The characteristics of the entrepreneurial mindset is that you are resourceful, impact driven, vision led, you are action oriented, you are opportunity focused, and I'll add one more, which is adaptable. Adaptable means that if it is raining, you don't sit and you complain. There's in my village, let me just put that way. In my village, when it rains, getting people to go to work or even leave the house is a complete headache. In my village, when people see the rain, they're like, we'll wait for the rain. Choka, it's wet. And then they don't come to work. So work starts late, class starts late, everything starts late. So if you have the entrepreneurial mindset, what we're saying you are is you are a person who sees opportunities where there are challenges. We say you are a person who has 6 key characteristics. So you're opportunity focused because you see opportunities where there are challenges. Number 2, you're action oriented. You don't just sit there folding your hands and saying, somebody needs to. You step up and you begin to do the work. You step up and you marshal people, you call people into the space. Again, you're adaptable, which means you pivot. When plans change, you pivot. When situations change, you pivot. When you hit failure, you learn from the failure, you go and you unpack it piece by piece, make it a fine thread, understand where the root is, and then resolve that. You are resourceful, which means whatever you have in your hands, you work with that. And then you create solutions, you create movement, you create grace. So then you're also impact driven, which means you care about solutions that change people's lives. And finally, you're vision led. You're not running on survival. Even if at this moment I'm trying to put food and bread on the table, I'm not stuck there. What I'm working to do is move towards purpose, move towards growth, move towards legacy. So if you're all those things as an entrepreneur, and we said entrepreneurial mindset is a muscle you can develop, then where you are born does not become a hindrance. And I'll say that again. If you are in the space where you have the entrepreneurial mindset, where you are born does not become a hindrance. Where you are born simply becomes the place or the doorway through you entered the world. And what I find so absolutely amazing is the fact that the doorway that we come in through the world is foundational because it affects how we think, what we do, what we can access, but is not a limitation. Where you are born is not a limitation. It is really just the fuel and the foundational place that you need to be able to go forth. Welcome, Flo. Welcome, JB. Good to see you here. We're talking about the intersection of entrepreneurship, and today we're talking about where you were born and its value to where you are going. So, I keep saying this is a space of it's grounded on faith. So one of the things that really make me excited is when I find when I find references to what I'm learning in the scriptures. So Acts 17:26 says, from one man he made all nations, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. That's a summarization. That's not the whole scripture. But what that tells me is where I was born was purpose driven by God. There is no mistake that I should have been born into this family. There is no mistake that we should have lived in the places we lived in. My parents should have worked in the places they worked in. We should have faced the deep, difficult times we faced to get to where we are. Now, for many people, I have the face of never known trouble. Where? Because where I was born, we were taught to have faith, and faith became the foundation of who we are. We were also taught to have impact. So then I began tracing my bloodlines, which is something I encourage all of us to do. Go back and look at your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and if you can go back as far as you can. Find out what are common behaviors, what are common happenings. Did one person in every generation become exceedingly wealthy and no one else didn't? Did we all get stuck living in a specific place? Were there people with certain characteristics? When I went and I looked back at my bloodline, there are things that didn't show up in my family. My love for fashion, my love for beauty, my love for African jewelry, that one is all me. So I thought. Until one day, my auntie was passing on jewelry and my grandfather had bought my grandmother some big chunky beads. I never saw her wearing them, ever. But now I understood that my taste and flair came from my grandfather on my mother's side. And that allowed me to settle into the reality of who I am, okay? So when you know where you come from, then you can begin to push forward. When I went searching, I also found that we have a lot of people who do fast things in their communities. We had teachers. When I look at the bloodline, all of us have a teaching gift and a speaking gift to a certain, okay, let me not say all. Let me say about 20% of every generation has that speaking gift. But we also have another 20% who have the leadership and administration gift. So that now tells me that the things I'm interested, the things I'm doing, the person I'm becoming is not just random. But then there are also things in the place we were born that I'm not going to carry. For instance, there was an agitation and an anger that spewed over. So as a generation, some of us said that stops with our parents. And we realized the anger is because of unresolved past issues, so we have pursued healing. So the entrepreneurial mind is about seeing opportunity where there are challenges, and then understanding that where I was born is foundation. Now, if I dig and I find a foundation that is not useful to where I need to go, you know, like a house, you can go back, you can bring the house down and do the foundation and rebuild the foundation. That's why no matter how difficult where you were born is, it is not a finality. It is not the finality of who you have become. My uncle once said to me that my competition is not children in my neighborhood. It is children from informal settlements who have nothing to lose, because they will then put all their energy into building whatever they can. And I began to watch people in my community. There were many who didn't have the kind of opportunities I had. So they did not go to university. I did. However, they started working earlier. They accessed money earlier. They supported their families better. So when I was in my late 20s, now beginning to work, they had 6 years experience. So even if we walked to the same table and all were being judged from is our experience, they had an advantage. So then I began tracking it, and this is what I found. So 2 children go to primary school together, go to high school together, finish Form 4 the same year. One can go to university, 4 years. The other one, their parents only have enough money for them to do a certificate course, all right? So they do a certificate course. When they do the certificate course, it is 6 months. They're able to get a small job. During that job, they're able to now go back with evening studies, do the second certificate, do the third, get to a higher certificate. All right, this person is still studying full-time. Let's say they never think about getting a job, so they're studying full-time. So now this person has 2 years experience. Their colleague is just in class. So then that colleague now with a higher certificate is able to get a small raise. So let's say they started at 10,000 shilling salary, they've been able to move to 12 or 13. They're still working, gaining experience, they're learning the ropes. This one is still in university. So this one now then, having learned the ropes, continues working. By the time the one who went to university graduates, they've been laser focused on studies. They have not honed their other skills. If they entered an interview together based on experience, the one who went to college and has been studying is ahead, all right? And that is how life is. So what am I saying? I'm not saying don't go to university. I'm saying even when you're in university, how can you hone and do a skill that will get you ahead? How can you learn a skill that will push you ahead of others? How can you find a way to live your life that will keep you walking and growing? Now, when you are moving, your thinking will have been shaped by where you come from. Your belief system will have been shaped by where you come from. But that does not mean you get stuck there. No. It doesn't mean that you get stuck there. What it means is you daily go through life unpacking what is working, what is not. And that's where the entrepreneurial mind helps you. When you understand that you are divinely sent into the family you are sent into, you are divinely assigned to that community, that your being born there is foundational to who you must be. There are skills you must learn, there are attitudes you must encounter, but there are things you must not retain. I was born into a family where by and large everybody was an employee. It didn't work for me for long. I was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'd like to run my own business. I'd like to grow. I'd like to help more people. When I was an employee, I was a problem solver. I could see issues coming. I was preemptive. It is wired into me to be like that. But I had to get to a place where I chose to stand up for what I know I'm called into. So my foundation, my background was the perfect ground for what I needed to do. My background was the perfect ground for who I needed to become. My background was the perfect fuel and fodder to push me to make certain changes. I am the youngest of 3, so I fought for everything I got. I was not the only girl. I was not the first girl. So where I was, and I was born after somebody who made me fight for everything I got. So what did that teach me? That taught me resilience. It taught me strength. It taught me to be strategic, because every situation I faced, or every situation I potentially faced, I needed to find resolution. So when you're the youngest and you're likely the smallest for a long time, you need to figure out how to get what you need. So I became strategic from a very young age. That's why I say where you are born, whether it is in birth order, whether it's in locality, whether it is tribe, it is not as important as the choices you are going to make. Now, there are communities where there are limitations, but have you grown to the top capacity, or are you drawing from the things people have said to you? Something you need to know today, where you are born is not a limitation unless you let it become your limitation. Yes, where you are born comes with limitations, it comes with mindsets, but the limitation stays if you let it. So the question I ask today is, what can you do to get out of where you are and where you have been? What can you do to get out of there? What can you do to push past the limitations you find in your life based on the place you came to? That's my question for you today. Many of us say, oh, but I was born in a small town. Yes. But do you have a global vision? What are you doing to get to that global vision? Oh, but no one in my family has ever done it. Yes, but you can be the first to do it. No one in my community has ever walked past this. Yes, but what is stopping you from getting there? I met a young lady many years ago who was from one of the lower income places, and she had gotten the invitation to hold fort for somebody. There was a lady working in an organization and she was going on maternity leave. In Kenya, maternity leave is 3 months. So usually what you do, you have to look for somebody to work in that person's position for the duration. So this young lady came and said, I'm not taking it. I asked her why. It's only for 3 months. So then I challenged her. You've been looking for a job, right? Right. Okay, take this job. It's only 3 months. And then I said to her, in those 3 months, become so exceedingly valuable that they will either give you a good recommendation and you can go somewhere, or you will get another job. So she went in as a receptionist and supported that role for 3 months as this lady was on maternity leave. At the end of the 3 months, she was so good at her job, she got a job as the secretary to the CEO. 3 months as a company receptionist, 4th month secretary to the CEO. In that space, she was able to prove herself in 3 months that she worked with that organization for 6 years. She grew in her skill. What was her background? She came from a lower income area. But when she was there, she was able to move out of where she was. She was able to stabilize her faith. And what happened when she left 6 years later? She went back to her community because she had been able to connect with some ideas of community development. She went back into her community, and to date, she has a feeding program. She has an empowerment program for young people. She provides sanitary wear for girls, all because she believed she could. And what we did is we worked on her self-esteem, we worked on her thought process, we challenged her mindset, and then we pushed through. So the entrepreneurial mindset allows you to see opportunities in challenges, number one. It also allows you to acknowledge that where I start doesn't have to be where I end. That my foundation, my family, where I was born, doesn't have to be a limitation. Because it doesn't have to be a limitation. And this one I say with confidence, God is not surprised about where you were born. He didn't say, oh my God, you mean David was born there? He knew that he would plant David into that family. He knew that he would plant Chesubire where he planted Chesubire and give her life drama. But he also knew that when Chesubire met Mildred, when Chesubire met Peter, when she got the right mentorship, the right connections, read the right thing, did the right work, put in the energy to become more, he knew that Chesubire would become a better person. So what we want to do is understand that our places of birth are not a limitation. They are the launch pad. They are the fire, the fuel, the thing that will push us ahead. Where we were born and how we choose to build our lives are a launch pad. What we have to understand is that we must not despise humble beginnings. Not everybody is born in privilege but not everybody will remain in disadvantage or margin. Just because we come from marginalized communities does not mean we will always be marginalized. When I look at some of our activists across the continent, I can see how they come from places of margin and how they have used that as fuel. And in my view, it's because they have the entrepreneurial mindset. They can see that, yes, these are challenging times, but no, this is not my limitation. I can become more than where I was born. I can become more than this little salary I have. I can build, and just because I come from a single family home does not mean my mother will not be able to live well. So what I want us to think about in terms of where we come from is, if my birthplace is a launch pad, then it is also the beginning of my training ground. If I'm born into a place where people are not excited about working and getting out of where they are, who can I attach myself to? Do I have somebody in the community who I know who works hard, who I can go and ask questions? If my family has never gone beyond class 6, can I find somebody who's gone to class 8 to year 11, year 12, who has gone to university, who is from a background like mine, and ask them, how did you do it? If no one in my family has started a business, but I want to start a business, can I find somebody online to follow? If I want to be a hairdresser, which is actually where I started my career, can I find a salon I can volunteer in? Right? But if I have never seen it and there's no one in my community, can I now believe in the desire I have in my heart to build? Because God knew that when He planted you there, you would thrive. Dr. Cindy Trim says, we come fully loaded, which means everything I need to become the fullness of God's desire for me, I was born with it. Anything else is to support what is inside me. I will say that again. Everything I need to get to the end game of my life, I am born with. Everything that surrounds me is the support structure. So if I know that I'm a global speaker, but everything around me is working, is challenging, that is because it's not easy to get to the global stage. So how do I use all these challenges to hone me, to nyorosha me, So what do I need to do? Where do I need to speak? Maybe in my school, there's a debate club, join debate club. Maybe in my school, there's an opportunity to be in a community, join the community. Maybe in my school, there is a club that allows us to go out of school and speak. I can become a prefect. It is using everything in your community to thrive. All right? So there is an opportunity to be a community mobilizer. Let me go and mobilize. What we must understand is, one, where we were born is the perfect place. It is the launch pad. But the calling of my life can be bigger than the geography where I was born. So that means I must not despise where I come from, humble beginnings, but I must also not disqualify myself because of my postcode. I must not disqualify myself because of chenye naishi, penye nilizaliwa. I must not say, I was just born in a small village, so I will not go far. Who said? Who said? We have stories of some of the stories I tell, maybe the Gen Zs will not get them, but here's the thing. Go research Jenga Karume. He was one of our wealthy Kenyans. He dropped out of school in class 4, began selling charcoal so that his younger siblings could go to school. We have other people who have walked to school. Your grandparents will probably tell you, oh, we walked to school barefoot. And many times that story annoys us. And I remember Gen Z asking, Kwani, you didn't love yourself? Number one, it's not that they didn't love themselves, they didn't have shoes. Their parents could not afford the shoe. But the places they came from, the places they walked to, never stopped them from becoming the fullness of who they are. So, the other thing we must not do is don't assume that small places cannot create or give birth to great things. You are the sum total of your thoughts, your actions, and the people you spend time with. So if you sense you are supposed to be more than where you were born, step out and do more. If you are supposed to be more than where you were born, step out and do more. Instead of saying, but nothing can come out of where I was born, ask, if God planted me here, what does he want me to grow? How does he want me to grow? Where does he want me to go? Because remember that where you are born is the launch pad. And if it is the launch pad and it is the training ground, then there are things you must learn in that place. So to have the entrepreneurial mindset is to be able to see opportunities where everybody sees challenges. It is to live as one who can not only see the opportunities, but one who understands that they must be opportunity focused, they must be action oriented, they must be adaptable, they must be resourceful, they must be impact driven and vision led. Which means that is a muscle that you can develop. Okay? It is a muscle that grows stronger with use. And because you found yourself in that space, and because you were born in a certain place, the place you were born becomes your launching pad and your training ground. And because it is a launch pad and training ground, the key question you must ask is, if God planted me here, what does he want me to grow? Who does he want me to become? What fruit must my life produce? And that, my friend, becomes the foundation of greatness. Greatness isn't just in where you are born. Greatness is in the capacity to understand that you are more than just the place you were born. Many of us are created for local impact, some for county, regional. What you must understand is you have a divine assignment. There is a reason why Jane was born. There is a reason why Samuel was created. There is a reason why Chesubire came to this earth. But I am responsible, sum total responsible, for taking advantage of the situation I was born in to become great. Greatness isn't just about me lording it over people. The true mark of greatness is to be born in a place to thrive and to become more than anybody imagined. I've shared before, I was born in a family of people who looked for jobs. I had a heart to run my own business. I had no models in my family. So I had to go out. I had to read. I had to look for people. I had to watch businesses, try, test, work, fail at some. But when you have the entrepreneurial mindset, which is the capacity and the ability to see challenges where to see opportunities where everybody sees challenges, then nothing stops you. Failure becomes a classroom, challenges become fuel, difficult conversations become the foundation of your growth. Because hear me well, anybody who accomplishes anything great has gone through a specific long journey. They have identified their weaknesses, they have worked on them, they have identified their strengths, they have worked on them, they have tried and failed and tried and failed and kept going. Because greatness isn't handed to you. I'll say that again. Greatness isn't handed to you. So something you must understand today, greatness isn't handed on a silver platter. We build for greatness. We see opportunities where there are challenges. We are adaptable, impact driven. We are action oriented, opportunity focused. We are vision led, which means that where we were born becomes a launch pad, becomes fuel, becomes our training ground and our starting line so that we can build for posterity. So don't disqualify yourself because you come from humble beginnings. Don't despise where you come from because it is humble. Don't disqualify yourself because I don't know, I've never tried, I've never done. And don't assume that small places cannot birth or bring forth big things. Understand that because you are planted in that space, because you are created and positioned in that family, because that unique set of things have happened in your life, because of those things, you are divinely equipped for what He has created you for. And remember, you come fully loaded. So everything you need to accomplish is in you. The circumstances around you bring those things out. But you have to choose. So something you need to remember today, how far you go is the sum total of your choices. Your choices, not mine. I have the sum total of my choices. I can choose to keep walking, or I can choose to say it is too hard. I can choose to dig and interpret everything I'm doing, why things are not working, how to thrive in the community, where to move to, or I can fold my hands and say, it's too hard. We become the sum total of our choices. So think about your choices today. What are the choices you've made up to now? How far have they got you? And can you make a different set of choices to get to a different place? If you have a question for me, I look forward to seeing it. All right, questions? Excellent. So we've been talking about the entrepreneurial mindset and how it is the capacity to see opportunities where everybody sees challenges. Where as one with an entrepreneurial mindset, we are vision driven, we are action oriented, we are adaptable, we are opportunity focused, we are consistently on the path of growth. And that means we look at where we come from, where we are born, and we figure out that where we're born is a launch pad, it is a training ground, it is not a limitation if we're able to work through it. So maybe some of the questions we could ask ourselves is, what if we don't have access to things like others in big cities? I always start with, what do you have access to? Let's start from there. Let's say, like if you have a smartphone, like anybody who's on this live, you have access to information. So because there is a live and because you can go online and you can learn on TikTok, why not shift what you do on TikTok from just doing things that make you laugh? Go and search how to start a business, tips on running a business. So use what you have. Maybe you may not have access to university, but you have a college education, or You have access to YouTube. I call it the University of YouTube. There's nothing you cannot learn. So look at what you have in your locality. Look at the resources around you and figure out, how do you make those resources work? That's what we must always do. So whatever resources you have, work with them. And what you will find is, as you work with what you have in your neighborhood, something will change. Something will shift. If I'm consistently using what is around me and I get to the end of my resources, I may meet a mentor, I may meet a coach, I may find somebody who knows more than me. And what happens after that is my growth is sustained. So that's what I would say. All right. So one of the other questions that has been asked is, how do I grow when there are no mentors or support systems near me? The very fact that you're on a live like this, thank you for asking that question. The very fact that you're on a live like this means that you have access to a form of information. So let me redefine mentorship. Mentorship isn't always talking to a person. Mentorship could also be that you follow me as Chasubire, you watch all my content, you go to my YouTube channels, you watch everything I do there, you come into my spaces, you see when I put up posters for events, for trainings, and you come for those. That would be mentorship. It means that you are drawing. To be mentored by a person is in several ways. You could read all their content, you could read all their books, watch all their content without having met them, received inspiration, acted on it, and got proof. The other form of mentorship is that you could come into a space and one-on-one, we meet on a monthly basis or a weekly, usually a monthly basis or bi-weekly basis. We discuss issues, give you assignments, you go and you implement. So don't limit mentorship to you being able to talk to a person. I have people I have never met, but I follow their content and I implement what they say so diligently. And what has happened for me is I have grown. So when I meet the person, like I followed Vusi Tembekwayo for a very long time. And then one day I got the opportunity to moderate an event where he was. And when we sat down to talk, I said, I have followed you for the last 3 years and you have inspired me. And he's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you've been my mentor, even from afar. I used to do the same with Warren Buffett. Now I follow a couple of other people who are closer to what I'm building, because a mentor usually needs to be somebody who has built what you want to build or is at least ahead of you in what you're building. So you may not have access to individuals, but if you've got access to social media, if you've got access to different resources around the social space, then you can follow people and get information from there. Excellent, excellent. So the other question, and I think we had handled it a bit earlier, but I'll repeat it, is, does where I was born limit my potential? No. No. Your potential is in you. What limits your potential, and I'll say this very clearly, something you need to know today, what limits your potential is your mindset. Your mindset is what limits your potential. Your potential is limited by what you think. If you think you can, you are correct. If you think you can, you are correct. As a man thinks, so is he. Show me your thoughts and I'll show you the sum total of who you are. So where you are born can slow you down, but it doesn't have to limit your potential. It is how you work with it. And that's what I found in life. When I don't have much going for me, if I work with the little I have, then it follows. And I'll give an example. 2 years ago, I left an organization where I ran, and I believed I could build an enterprise support organization. I had no idea how to build that enterprise support organization. But I chose to build it. When I chose to build that enterprise support organization, help has come. Help has come. So that's the thing about an entrepreneurial mindset. You must be able to think about where you're going, what you want to accomplish, who you want to accomplish it for, and then the help you need comes. So let's think about life like that. What help do you need? And then look at where you're at, and what help is in the locality. As you begin to work on what you have access to, as you begin to work on what you have access to, then help comes. So if you begin to sit there and say, oh, I'm from such and such, I don't know, then you get stuck in that place of I don't have, I don't know. All right? Excellent, excellent. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I'm tracking them on another device also. Fantastic. All right. Do we have questions on the comment section? Is there insight you would like to have? Ask me, or we can begin to wind this down. So what have we discussed today? Today we've recapped the entrepreneurial mindset, and we've said that the entrepreneurial mindset is the capacity to see opportunities where everybody else sees challenges. That's entrepreneurial mindset. The characteristics are not too difficult. We're adaptable. We are opportunity focused. We're action oriented. We're resourceful. We're impact driven, and we're vision led. All right. Which then means the entrepreneurial mindset is a muscle. So the more we build it, the more it grows. So it could start like a small dot somewhere, and over time it becomes something bigger. It's important because it helps us be resilient. It strengthens us on the path we're going along, which means then if it gets stronger as we go, then we must lean into experience. We must lean into failure, because failure is your biggest classroom. And then you grow in boldness as you do more. It also gives you a very clear vision. So when people are saying, oh, that's impossible, you're like, I have a plan. There's a place we're going. And then we've also looked at, which has been the focus of what we've been doing today, is looking at our background. Where you're born is important, but it's not the whole story. It is a place of foundation. It gives you a foundation. It gives you your structure. It gives you your perspective. It influences your access, but it doesn't have to be your limitation. You can rise beyond that. So the truth of the matter is, you could be born in a small town, but have a global vision. So go out and do it. You can choose to be limited by where you were born, or you can choose to multiply. All right? And just because you don't have access to everything, if you use what you have access to, the next thing you use comes up. So finally, God is not surprised by where you were born. Nope. He planted you there. And your place of birth, the place you grew up, is really more of a launch pad than a limitation. All right? So your calling is usually bigger than your geography, and is supposed to expand where you are born. So do not despise humble beginnings. Do not disqualify yourself because of where you come from. And do not assume that small places cannot give birth to big things. Do not assume that. Instead, ask God, how does being planted here help me accomplish what you sent me out to do? So just in case you have a question, please feel free to follow me. My name is Chesubire. I'm the co-founder of the African MSME Collective, where we work with business leaders and help to figure out where they're going and be intentional in their steps. I help you use your voice to be intentional and achieve your goal and connect to your strategy. So we're here every Friday. We have this conversation about the intersection of faith, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Every Tuesday, we have an online free teaching session. It's leadership development. It is all business related, but if you are an individual and you want to build yourself as a brand, if you apply those things to your life, you will be able to accomplish much. So in this space, what we're working to do is to help each person attain their God-given potential. That's really what we're about. To help you move from where you are to the fullness of who you can be, so that when we get to the end of the road, the end of our lives, we will look back and we will have impacted many people. My hope is that you have a vision bigger than you. And if you don't, I will be launching a new product to help us think through our vision and our clarity. And just follow me, and I'll be releasing it early next week. We will put out a call and you'll be able to hear and see what we're working on. Why? Nobody's coming to save us as a continent of Africa. Nobody's coming to build for us as a continent. If we as the children of Africa do not rise up and build our continent, we're in trouble. We are the last reserve of major resources. We are the last reserve of energy. We are the youngest continent by age. But if we do not stabilize and be sure of what we're looking for, then they will come back and they'll take everything from us. In 1888, Europe sat at a table and divided up Africa. If we're not careful, somebody else is sitting at a table now dividing us up. That is why entrepreneurial mindsets work, because that makes us unstoppable. Even when we face challenges, it teaches us to be resourceful and use what we have to build, not just for ourselves, but for our families, our communities, our nations, our regions, the continent, and the globe. We have given the world fantastic solutions, but we also have more than 10 million of us living off the continent. So how do we build? We come back to the basics, which is the entrepreneurial mindset, which is the capacity to see opportunities where everybody sees challenges, number one. Number two is to understand that God designed us for the continent, to build her, to protect her, to preserve her. So if that is the design, then the place I was born is my launch pad. The place I was born is my training ground. The place I was born is the fuel I must have. Therefore, I must not disqualify myself and say, oh, I'm just born on the continent of Africa. I must stand tall and say, I am a daughter of Africa. I provide this solution to the world and I give this back to my community. That is why you will find me in this space, because no one is coming to save us. So if there are no more questions, no more comments, please feel free to mark your calendar. We'll be here having this conversation next week, Friday. But on Tuesday at 7 p.m., we'll also be live and we'll be talking about marketing in all its beauty and glory. We will do an 8-part series on marketing for the next 8 Tuesdays. But on Friday, we will be talking about the intersection of faith, leadership, and entrepreneurship, because that is the hope of each of us. Now, one last thing. The entrepreneurial mindset does not mean you must start a business. It is a mindset. So if you have that mindset and you are employed, we call you an intrapreneur. If you have the entrepreneurial mindset and you run a business, we call you an entrepreneur. But remember, the entrepreneurial mindset does not mean you must start a business. So on that note, with that level of clarity, my name is Chesure Talitwala, and I welcome you to join me again on Tuesday, 7 p.m. when we talk about marketing, and then again on Friday, same channel, where we'll talk about the intersection of faith, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Because unless we change how we think, we're not going anywhere. So thank you to all my communities who are following on. The Lord bless you, give you an amazing weekend, and as you go out, enjoy your rest. But think a bit about why you're here and where you need to go. Have a good Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.